In this video, we conclude a discussion on Chapter 2, where our topic is going to be the money market. In this video, make note of the concepts of money demand, money supply, equilibrium, as well as changes in equilibrium. To begin, for our markets in an economy, we have developed supply and demand to explain price and quantity determination. We have done this so far for both product markets and labor markets. Now we want to conclude this with our final market in the circular flow, being that of financial markets, where the specific financial market that we will talk about is the money market. Where in our circular flow, specifically for this market, we have our consumers saving a portion of their income and businesses taking on loans so that they can facilitate their spending. So the middle person that we can think about in this market being a bank. Okay. So then what we want to ask ourselves, what makes an agent want to hold on to money? Let us see what we can reason. Money is a good. It just happens to be the good that we make purchases with. Well, those purchases are for other goods and services. Those purchases are in part based on the price of that good or service and the income available. In addition to this, if money is not used for a purchase, it can be used at a future time. That is, it can be saved. So an agent holding on to money seems to be based off of what can they get from savings, how expensive are the goods and services they're looking at, and how much income are they earning? Okay. Well, assuming that an agent wants to be the best off possible, the agent could compare their value on money today compared to its price, where the price of money is going to be the interest rate. So they will hold on to money so long as their value is greater than or equal to the price of money, that is, the interest rate. Okay, so that seems like the willingness part of ability and willingness, where ability is going to stem from the agent needs to be able to store their money, that is, our middle person in our market, that is, banks. So this is able or ability to, and then it needs to be worth it to the agent. So willingness. And we'll have a greater discussion on money as well towards the end of the course when we develop monetary policy. But before we proceed here, okay, so we have the ability and willingness to hold on to money. We need valuation to be greater than or equal to its price. What factors are going to influence valuation? What we described in the prior slide, the price, not price of, the price on goods and income earned. Where in terms of the price on goods and services, if price on goods and services increases today, then that means agents are going to need to have more money today to be able to carry on their regular purchases. Therefore, if prices go up, then valuation goes up. So a positive relationship between those two. Whereas for income, if a consumer earns more income today, then that means they're capable of making more purchases. Therefore, they're going to want to hold on to more money to be able to facilitate that. So also a positive relationship between this factor and valuation. Income up, and valuation up. Okay. What we described then was money demand. This was the ability and willingness to hold on to specific quantities of money at various interest rates, holding all other factors constant, where ability need a place to store money, which we said would be banks. Willingness needs to be worth it to the agent. So their valuation needs to be greater than or equal to the interest rate, where we said it's two factors, were prices on goods and income earned. And then our final thing is our agents are comparing their valuation to the price of money, which is the interest rate, price on money. Okay, well, with all these pieces together, we can graphically draw our money demand curve. Okay, so for our money market, we're going to have interest rates on the vertical, the quantity of money on the horizontal axis. So let's just say we have some interest rate, and I'll call this R2. And I'll call this point B if the board would cooperate. All right, so if interest rates go up and valuation is staying the same, agents are going to have less incentive to hold on to money. Therefore, they're going to increase their savings. So we should see if interest rates go up from R2 to R3, less incentive to hold, giving us movements on this demand curve or a change in quantity demanded. Whereas if interest rates were to go from R2 to R1, holding valuation the same, valuation is now held greater compared to interest rates than they previously did. Therefore, there is more incentive to hold on to money. And that's going to generate point C, connecting these points. And that's going to give us Q3. And that's going to be Q2 here and Q1. And just as we've seen in our prior demand curves, we have an inverse or negative relationship between quantity demanded and price, in this case, interest rates. Okay, well, what about if we have something other than interest rates changing, such as a price increase or a price increase on goods and services, or an income increase? Well, let us consider that. Prices on goods and income increases. All right, well, if the price on goods and services increase, agents will need more money in order to carry on with their normal amount of purchases. Therefore, at the same interest rate, they're going to want to hold on to more money, therefore an increase in demand, leading to an entire shift of the money demand curve from MD0 to MD1. And I'm going to draw my arrows. New curve is in purple, and a higher quantity of money. Whereas on the other hand, if there's an increase in agent income today, they are capable of making more purchases. In order to do that, they're going to want to hold on to more money. Therefore, at the same interest rate, we're going to see an entire shift of the money demand curve from MD0 to MD1, taking us from Q0 to Q1. Okay. Now, moving on to money supply. This is the total amount of money in circulation. So this is controlled by the Federal Reserve. This is all we need to know for right now until we have our formal discussion on money and money markets when we go about monetary policy in the last third of the course. Well, the Federal Reserve controls the amount of money in circulation, and this makes it independent of the interest rate. Therefore, this is going to give us a vertical money supply curve, where depending on how the Federal Reserve sees the economy, they may increase or decrease the amount of money in circulation. If they increase the amount of money that's in circulation, that's going to cause a rightward shift in the money supply curve from money supply 0 to money supply 1. Whereas, given conditions in the economy, if the Federal Reserve decides to decrease the money supply or take money out of circulation, that's going to correspond to a leftward shift in the money supply, going from money supply 0 to money supply 1. Okay. Now, in terms of the money market, we've gone over demand and we've gone over supply. So buying and selling behavior, as before, will explain price and quantity determination. In this case, the quantity of money and interest rates, where, as we've seen before, equilibrium is going to occur when supply is equal to demand. That's going to determine the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity when there's just enough money out in circulation. This is going to be when money demand is equal to money supply. Determines interest rate and quantity of money. Okay. Well, as we've seen with our prior markets, we live in a world of change. If there's a change in either money demand or money supply, there will be a change in equilibrium in the money market. Okay, well, let's go through one example, and we'll do this from the perspective of a change in the money supply and see what we can learn. Okay, so with our money supply example, suppose that the Fed has seen it fit that they want to increase the amount of money in circulation. So we are starting at point A, and we're at a quantity level Q0 and at a interest rate level R0. The Federal Reserve has decided to increase the amount of money in circulation, taking us from money supply 0 to money supply 1. Well, at the same interest rate R0, and also money supply shifts right, let me have that underlined right there. Then at the same interest rate R0, money supply is greater than money demand. So that's giving us a surplus, QS greater than QD. So there is incentive for interest rates to decrease. Until buying and selling behavior are compatible with each other once again in the money market, where we arrive at point B, where at point B, we now have a quantity level of Q1 and an interest rate level of R1, where comparing A to B, the quantity of money has gone up, while the interest rate, or the price on money, has gone down. Okay. So with that in mind, where we'll pick up next time is we'll consider measuring total output.